legislative abilities. We've got some people who think that everything needs to be banned because it's been banned for 70 years. This is a natural product. And I have said this from this well before, and I continue to tell you that something that God lets grow naturally is better than anything made in a pharmaceutical laboratory.
Once again, legislators are discussing the topic of medical cannabis. Good evening and welcome to day 31 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. We spend so much time in our cars. Transportation issues are always a top concern under the Gold Dome, too. Tonight, we'll hear from legislators on everything from gas taxes to how slow you can drive on Georgia highways. Also, if you filed your income taxes or are about to, there are some updates lawmakers are still working on. We'll tell you all about them tonight. And nearly every Senate Democrat has signed on to a bill to reduce the minimum on foreclosure liens on condominiums. But before we get to those topics, Capitol correspondent Sarah Callis tells us what happened today in both chambers.
Hi, Donna. With 3 weeks left in this year's legislative session, both chambers passed bills dealing with controlled substances.
Before the Senate got started today, they were given a serving of Bananas Foster. Not the famous dessert that originated in New Orleans, but rather a program developed by the owners and founders of the Savannah Bananas baseball team.
Bananas Foster was born in 2023 when they hired me to come in and build the organization to create the mission, which is to celebrate the foster care community while educating and inspiring others to get involved. So since 2023, we have celebrated over 200 foster families that are making a difference across the United States. And we have also inspired over 500 people to learn more about becoming a licensed foster family.
It was then on to the 7 bills on the docket. HB 162 would allow first-time offenders to have their convictions sealed for certain nonviolent crimes and keep it off their records if they fulfill the terms of their sentencing.
Currently, you can petition the court to have them seal your record. We used to call it expungement. Now they call it restriction of your record while you're in that type of program. But ordinarily, it is not sealed or restricted until after you have completed your probationary sentence. This allows people to keep these proceedings confidential. They're meant for non-serious crimes, and it's to allow a person a second chance for a first offense.
It passed unanimously. HB 219 would allow nurses, social workers, and marriage and family therapists to take part in a program that helps medical professionals who lose their licenses because of a substance abuse problem to reacquire them and re-enter the healthcare field.
We want to extend this to our nurses and make sure that we have an opportunity for them to continue their careers if they've made a mistake one time. And it really encourages people not to hide their problems, but to bring them forward because they know there's a pathway other than just losing their license.
The bill passed 46-1. While most of the bills were passed without any real opposition, HB 1199 didn't enjoy that same unity. The bill is a yearly tax law adjustment that conforms the state code with changes in federal tax laws. But Republicans in committee changed a provision that reduced the state's match of federal tax credits for low-income housing by 50%.
The state of Georgia right now matches the federal money 100%. We're just about the only state that does that. Some states match it 50%. Some states don't match it at all. And we had a study done in the past that showed that we really weren't getting any benefit from the 100% match. That didn't seem to matter on number of units that were built.
Democrats didn't like the change, saying that the funds being cut would affect projects already in progress, as well as worsen the lack of affordable housing already impacting the state.
This bill, in fact, does not save the state money. All it does is put a leading state agency on this issue into a cash crunch that it has to go into an emergency posture to solve.
Despite the objections, the bill passed along party lines, 31-18. In the House, members took up 3 Senate bills and 2 resolutions. Senate Bill 220 makes changes to the state's medical cannabis program, including renaming it medical cannabis from low THC oil. The bill also adds an inhalation option to the medication, bans public use, and changes restrictions around dosing to milligrams instead of percent of THC. It also adds some new conditions like lupus to the program. The state first passed legislation to create the program in 2015.
This isn't about legalizing recreational marijuana, even though the federal government has now moved it from a Schedule I to a Schedule III at the bottom of the hill. This is about helping people. And I hear questions when people talk about adding these illnesses onto this list. Let me tell you something. That's just the product and the nature of how this goes. If you have someone who has cancer, that has ALS, folks, get a life about this stuff. When people are hurting, they need relief.
While SB 220 received a mostly positive reception on the House floor, a Republican representative said some lobbying groups were not as kind.
Earlier this week, I received an email threatening me that if I voted yes on this bill, I would be dinged on a legislative scorecard. And as I read that email, frankly, it made me quite mad. And a performance appraisal from a lobbying organization that did not elect me, attempting to tell me how to legislate, is not how I operate. My constituents sent me here to critically think, to evaluate the facts, and make the best decisions possible for the people I represent.
It passed 138 to 21 and now heads back to the Senate because of changes made in House committee. And H.R. 145 urges the Departments of Education and Public Health to collaborate and prioritize hearing and vision screenings for school children.
This is an urging resolution to set up an opportunity for us to do a better job of screening those kids, catching those kids, and helping them to be able to see the board, hear the teacher, rather than have a gap in time for that to happen, and we know that improves literacy.
H.R. 1049 designates the last Wednesday of October each year as Fentanyl and Opioid Awareness Day. Both resolutions were adopted unanimously.
Lawmakers will be back on Monday for Day 32, which is also the 5th anniversary of the Atlanta spa shootings. Some lawmakers will hold a memorial at the state capitol. That's my Capitol Report. Donna?
Thank you, Sarah. Our first guest tonight has several bills he feels very passionate about. Joining us is Democratic Senator Sheikh Rahman of Lawrenceville. His committees include appropriations, government oversight, and urban affairs. Welcome to Lawmakers again.
Thank you.
Glad to have you back. So let's get into, you have bills that deal with housing. And so let's talk about the first one. It deals with condo foreclosures. Current law allows foreclosure for as little as $2,000 in unpaid HOA or condo fees. What your bill does is raise that threshold from $2,000 to $20,000. So talk about that a little bit and the reason you want this bill.
Well, definitely, this bill is all about protecting the families, protecting the home ownership, protecting the American dreams. You know, it's ironic to think about it. You can lose your home just to your homeowner association or condominium association as little as $2,000. So this is like, it's crazy to think about it. So I'm raising that about make sure that there are, association or some bad actors taking advantage of this law. It's happening. People are, getting threatened, and especially the affordability, the keeping up housing right now in Georgia is not only in metro area issues. It's a statewide issues. So we need to make sure to raise that bar so we can protect our families. At the end of the day, everybody wants a secure community, secure home, and pay their bills. Nobody wants to lose their home just because they owe $2,000.
So you had constituents come to you about this who were losing their homes, because of HOA fees or condo fees,
or at least getting a letter that we're sending to attorneys for foreclosure. So just by getting that letter is sometimes is not and I don't know. It's just. It's losing your mind sometimes.
Yeah. So let's talk about the other side of it, though. When it comes to HO fee or condo association fees, the other people are paying it, and they feel like that everybody should be putting into that same pot. So how do you respond to that?
I understand, but I think it's as little. I think it's if the same person today. We know the American not only in Georgia, all over the country, you don't have sometimes $400 or $500 to fix your car, something emergency happen. So things could change within a days and week to that particular person. That person could be in the same situation, can lose a home for $2,000. I want people to think that too. It is not that, not everybody is losing home because of they can pay a couple of thousand, but there are organizations, there are associations, they're threatening people and actually filing too.
Okay. And maybe some people may not be able to come up with $20,000 once they get to that, but you thought that was a good amount.
I thought that with this negotiation, not, 20,000 is not in a stone. We can negotiate, we can find out. I'm willing to work with it, but we need to move from 2,000 to at some higher level.
Okay. Well, let's get to another of your bills. This one is one that is called it makes changes to the Fair Business Practices Act of 1975. So talk about that a little bit.
Well, is Georgia facing a housing affordability crisis that has been building for years. And especially too many families are struggling to afford rent, to keep up the housing cost as the housing cost continue to rise. So nowadays what happened is this big Wall Street hedge fund, private equity firm, they're buying all these houses. Yeah. And what's happening, they're putting in the rental market, they're using AI-generated software to increase the rent. It's just crazy. I want to make sure they don't allow what is called the algorithmic, recommendation to raise the price across the state.
So what they're doing is using algorithms or these pricing software that they have to come up with these rental prices.
Definitely, and to increase the prices and the leases options, etc. Yep.
So what those who support this say that it's an effective way of coordinating prices between like competing landlords or something like that.
Well,
it's a way of figuring out how to be fair in that sense. What do you say?
If you look at in Metro Atlanta, if you look at it, it's around 18,000 single-family home by three major corporations, Wall Street funds. So what happened? They are controlling price to their benefit, not necessarily protecting the homeowner or individual landlord has one or two houses. They are doing, if you have a house, you have just one house or two houses you're trying to rent, they're not using AI. This AI model that software is using is a big corporations, big landlord. They have multiple apartment complex, they have multiple housing unit. Those are the people you need to benefit themselves, not the small landlord.
And so you think that the renter is better off when there is nothing like an algorithm, nothing like any pricing software involved in all of this.
Absolutely,
okay.
absolutely.
All right.
I have no doubt in my mind.
You're going back to the pen and paper type. That's what you'd like to see.
Definitely.
All right. I know you're very passionate about these. They didn't make it on crossover day, but you're going to keep going.
We got to keep going. We got to work for the hard-working families in Georgia.
All righty. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and talking about them.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Well, aside from the weather, transportation in Georgia is always a major talking point in conversations, especially lately with gas prices. Coming up, we'll talk about that and legislation to increase the minimum highway speed limit and reduce votes involving mass transit. A member of the House Transportation Committee will join us to talk about those issues and much more, so stay with us.
Georgia Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization dedicated to preserving Georgia agriculture. Farm Bureau advocates for all Georgia farmers at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Hi, I'm Burt Wesley Huffman, joining you from the set of Lawmakers, now in its 56th season covering the Georgia legislative session. Community and collaboration are foundational to our work, and we're honored to bring those concepts together around the issues and stories that matter to you. Your engagement powers our ability to create trusted programming that encourages curiosity and conversation with Georgia in focus. It's all here for you, so please support it now with your generous gift at gpb.org/give.
It's not a country thing or a city thing, but it is a get the crew together thing. It's not a soul music thing or a folk music thing, but it is a finding your new favorite local band thing. It's not a Yellow Jacket thing or a Bulldog thing, but But it is a Football Fridays thing that brings every fan to their feet. Tune in to GPB. It's a Georgia thing.
We came across this intriguing story.
Things are starting to get going. Are you prepared?
It is a golden opportunity.
It's not over.
It will be all that you've dreamed of.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. Right now, the big talk in transportation is gas prices, which have jumped up about 20% since the war with Iran began. Since 2021, Governor Brian Kemp has temporarily suspended Georgia's motor vehicle excise tax multiple times, including right after Hurricane Helene. Some lawmakers are calling on him to do it again. We have two Democrats, one in the House and one in the Senate, to talk about it, and the reaction from Governor Brian Kemp.
We've seen gas prices jump 15% in Georgia alone, and they're going to continue to rise. The Trump administration has dragged us into yet another war in the Middle East that we did not ask for. They've called it Operation Epic Fury. It's Operation Epic Failure, and Georgians should not have to pay for the majority of this cost.
I think that both sides of the aisle, since we both focus on making life more affordable and cheaper for our average Georgian, this is a way that we can immediately impact it. And so we see both Democrats and Republicans support of this, where we saw that the governor went from opposing doing this over to now considering it because of the way that we are all coming together and pushing for it.
We've also suspended the gas tax in the past to be able to help them do that too. But we also have not overreacted to something that potentially could be a short-term blip. So we're going to continue to watch things. I mean, oil prices shot up to $115 a barrel 48 hours ago, and now they're back down to 90. I know the president's very focused on this issue. Also, it's going to be interesting to see how markets around the world adjust to what's happening in Iran. God bless, and praying for our troops, by the way. But I think you'll see markets start to shift to use different trade routes that will be very effective. And the good thing is, because of energy policies right now in the United States of America, we're pumping a record amount of oil and natural gas, which has made us energy independent. Now, we're subject to global markets, but from an energy security standpoint and long-term economic viability, I think we're in a really good place. But we're just going to continue to watch the market for a few more days.
Well, we'll continue to watch that, and you can look for updates on gpb.org. Now we're going to talk about a couple of different transportation issues. Joining us is Republican Representative John Carson of Marietta. He is the chairman of the House Retirement Committee. He's on the powerful Appropriations and Rules Committees, and he's also on the Transportation Committee. So welcome back to Lawmakers. We appreciate having you. So let's talk about one of your bills, and one of your transportation bills, starting with your desire to raise the minimum highway speed limit in Georgia from 40 miles per hour to 50 miles per hour.
You know, I've got a lot of support on that, so thank you. I do, before we get into too much, I do want to mention also thoughts and prayers to the families that were impacted by the shooting at West Bloomfield at the Temple Israel in Michigan. I talked to my friend Esther Panich and extended my well wishes to the Jewish community. So
and we should mention that you were the one that pushed through the bill that actually defines what anti-Semitism is in Georgia. It took a while to get that passed.
It took a while to do that. I developed a number of Jewish friends, as you can imagine. I don't have Jewish heritage, but my mother always taught me to love and protect the people of Israel.
Yeah, so they're in our prayers. So thank you for mentioning that.
Absolutely. So minimum speed limits.
40 miles an hour. We see the people going. Some of them little old ladies, probably like me. No, 50 miles an hour. You want to bring it up to 50 miles an hour?
I want to bring it up to 50 miles per hour for interstates in Georgia 400. So the reason for doing that, this idea was brought to me by a constituent that's a civil engineer. And he said, John, we really have an issue in Georgia where it's not that it's the speed limit, the minimum speed limit is 40, it's that there's such a difference between the minimum and maximum. Going back all the way to the early 70s, our speed limit, as you remember, on the 285 and 75 was 55 miles per hour. The minimum was 40. When the Republicans took over in Washington, D.C. and removed some of the federal highway funding restrictions and so forth, the speed limit was in the 90s moved from 55 to 65. And then later was moved to 70. But see, Donna, we never increased the minimum speed limit. And so I'm not concerned about the minimum speed limit being 40. What I'm concerned about is there being such a high difference between the minimum and maximum. It would be, imagine someone going right at 40, 41 miles per hour, and another person going, say, 70, just a little over 70, and maybe law enforcement may give them a pass, and they're going 73, 74 miles per hour. That's a difference of 33 miles per hour. And that's effectively going straight to a brick wall at 33 miles per hour or what have you. That is really dangerous, and we've seen that in the crash reports. I have actually letters of endorsement from law enforcement on this issue.
Yeah, I wondered about that in terms of statistics. You've actually seen that there is a difference in terms of what you mentioned, crash reports, though.
Ever since I handled or did the hands-free law back in 2018, I've been getting that's right. I've been getting the Georgia State Patrol reports. The overnight reports in regard to fatalities in our states, in regard to crashes and so forth. And one of the biggest ones is rear-end collisions. Okay.
Where is this bill right now?
The bill passed out of House Transportation. It was in rules and did not get called up for a vote, but I think it might appear somewhere later this year, or we'll bring it back in 27 because I do have a lot of support for it.
Okay, let's move on. Of course, we talked about the argument over this when it comes to senior citizens and all. Have you heard from any of them who feel
I have heard from some, yeah, and what we did is we pulled back a little bit in regard to the original bill. We're only impacting Georgia interstates and Georgia 400, specifically those. So this wouldn't affect 316. It would not affect Golden Isles Parkway. It wouldn't affect 278, anything like that. Only interstates and Georgia 400.
Right. And why separate Georgia 400?
It's such a high. Such a high use highway.
Volume. There's a lot of
volume coming down out of Forsyth County and other counties. It's yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll keep up with that one. Let's talk about another one. You have a you want to change how often some of the areas vote when it comes to mass transit. Static
yes.
Conformity, you call it, because I know you're from Cobb County,
right.
and Gwinnett County in particular. Trying to get the SPLOST dollars to maybe expand MARTA has been a constant.
I am all in favor of putting this in front of the voters.
Okay.
However, the pro side has the various resources to educate voters, quote unquote, educate taxpayers on this. And the against side really does not have as much organization or funds with them, particularly when you're talking about the county on one side, such as Cobb, and then the taxpayers on the other. If you remember, Gwinnett has had 3 transit referendums in the past 7 years. Actually, in 2019, in 2020, and 24. Cobb has had one when we had looked at T-SPLOST in 2012, and then we had another transit referendum in 24. All 5 of those have failed. Every single one of them. I've heard from the voters that they don't want to keep coming back to look at this every 2 years, 4 years, or what have you. Again, I'm all in favor of what listening to the voters, and that's where this came from. And the voters have said over and over again, culturally and geographically, they just don't want to pay that tax for transit. I will tell you, I've lived in London, I've lived in New York, and those areas that culturally and geographically accept transit and willing to pay for it. We just don't see that in some counties in Georgia.
So you want 8 years between those votes?
Correct.
Okay. And where's that bill?
That is also in House rules, and we're trying to find a path forward.
Okay. We'll keep up with that one too. Now I want to get into one that's a lot of people should be interested in this. And this is your bill dealing with the IRS in particular, and it would be a lot for me to even try to explain. So explain what we're talking about here.
Okay, a lot of detail here. This is in regard to House Bill 1199 in regard to the IRC conformity. And to your viewers, the reason for paying attention to this is because we have got to have a set of income tax laws in Georgia for your viewers, all Georgians, to be able to file your tax returns. Every single year, the U.S. Congress changes various tax laws, and we need to decide whether or not we're going to conform to those changes or we're going to do something else. We have an income tax code in Georgia that mostly marries up to the federal, and we just need to decide, like I said, what are we going to conform and what we're not. The issue this year, and usually it's just a housekeeping measure, that's very boring, very dry. And the reason I thought it would be interesting for your viewers is because this has massive implications to hundreds of thousands of Georgia taxpayers. There were a number of changes that were made in the H.R. 1. Remember the big, beautiful bill by Donald Trump. Some of the changes, we're adopting a number of those changes, but some are very expensive to do so. If we fully exempted tips and overtime the way, like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, it would be a very costly. However, we are looking at some tax relief, as you know, in those realms, as well as we're really looking at tax relief for all Georgians. That's really more the position of the Georgia House, bringing the rates down for everybody. This bill, House Bill 1199, just as we discussed, was passed the Senate today. I think it's likely to go to for further discussion. What passed out of the Senate today, and I appreciate my friends over there doing that, they have changed the tax law for tips and overtime and for low-income housing credits, going all the way back to January 1st of 2025. Now, that impacts tax returns that Georgians are filing right now.
That's the big issue. Some people have already filed, and there's still implications that they may have to. It will change what they filed, what they think they paid, or maybe getting back.
Correct. I'm a CPA by background. I've talked to a number of people in my profession. They're seeing all these errors coming up in software, such as, Georgia allows $10,000 for a floor for itemized deductions, for state and local tax deductions. So if I have a husband and wife and 3 kids, and they make, say, $150,000 a year, and they pay a total amount between property taxes and income taxes, $15,000. Is all of that deductible? Well, on the federal return, it is. But in Georgia, right now, we're limited to $10,000. The problem is these the tax softwares like TurboTax, Intuit, CCH, all these platforms don't know what exactly is the Georgia tax law for 2025.
You'd think this would have been done much earlier, like as soon as you guys got back.
Well, we don't meet until the second week of January.
It's true.
This bill actually passed the Georgia House February 22nd, I think it was, so in the 3rd week. All I can say is it passed the Senate today. And
the big difficulty right now is in the effort to move to eventually eliminate income taxes. There are credits that are given out that are affected by all of this too, right? Correct. Credits to corporations and all of that.
So I'm glad you brought that up. The other part of the IRC conformity, so we can update our tax laws, and so your viewers can file your tax returns. Trust me, Department of Revenue has been talking to me quite a bit about this, and I want it to be a seamless process. But if we try to change tax laws to that extent for tips, for overtime, for low-income housing credits, Donna, I mean, it's going to be a nightmare. I received information from the IRS that they have accepted, I think it's 15.5 million returns that have claimed no tax on overtime.
Wow.
So, okay, that's the IRS. So Georgia's about 3% of the nation, population-wise.
So they may have to change it.
You would say that's probably about 450 to 500,000 returns have been sent to the Department of Revenue, more than likely, based on the IRS.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there, and people are going to have to really look into this. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. Thank you so much for coming on. But that does it today for Lawmakers. We do not have a show tomorrow, and the legislature is not in session, but we'll be back on Monday. Have a good evening.